Hello, quilters. It is Wednesday night in New York, and I am happy to be here. Hello in Texas. I'm guessing you're a little hotter than we are. We're only hitting about 80 this week, which is nice. It's nice to not have, not to be sweating to death all the time. I do put the air conditioner on. I have one air conditioner, and it's only in my office, but I use it because I have quilts on top of me quite often. So hopefully you've been quilting and having a lot of fun, because I've been quilting and having a lot of fun. I finished another quilt last night that was just delightful, and I can tell you, absolutely tickled with the border. I'm editing the video right now, and I think you're really going to like it. And it gave me some ideas for some future stuff. Do you do that every time you make a quilt? Quilts are like your book list, your to be read list. Like every time you read a book, you get six more books you want to read. And every time you finish a quilt, you get six more quilts you want to quilt because, oh, if I did it again, I would do that differently, or I would do that differently, or this differently. So, yeah, my to be read list and my to be made as a quilt list are really long. Hello in West Michigan. I never know which way the camera puts me. Let's see. Oh, hello. You read Tress and it was great. Wasn't it great? I loved it. I have his, so I recommend, I put out what I'm reading every week in my newsletter. And Brandon Sanderson is a young adult fantasy type author. He was actually hired to finish the Wheel of Time series. If anyone is watching that, I think it's on some TV show. I haven't watched it. But like the family of the original author handed him the last two or three books that were in draft form after the original author died, and he was the heir apparent who finished the series and then has several series of his own. So I love Brandon Sanderson. I have read a lot of his books, and he did a special project, and that Tress of the Emerald Sea was one of his special projects. He put it on Kickstarter, I think, and he broke Kickstarter. He raised $14 million to do special edition prints of the book. I didn't participate in the Kickstarter, but apparently I'm not the only person who's heard of Brandon Sanderson, because he raised $14 million and broke every Kickstarter record. But this book came about because of The Princess Bride. He said, what happens if Buttercup didn't wait for Wesley to come back? What if she went and rescued him? And so it was a fun, sweet book, some sass, some humor. And I am in the middle of reading the Gulag Archipelago. It's 7 volumes. I'm on, and the audiobook is divided into 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 through 7. 1 and 2 it was disturbing, but not heavy, dark. The second set, it's dark, and I think I will need to cleanse my palate. Maybe I'll read Brandon Sanderson's second book next, because this one, I have about 12 hours left to listen to this book, and it's kind of brutal. So yeah, I'm gonna finish it because I'm not a quitter. However, it's kind of dark, as you would think. A whole 70 plus hours of audiobooks about the gulags during the Soviet era Russia. And I read books like that for fun. Anyway, hello in Fulton, New York. I'm not exactly sure where that is, so I'm guessing it's either Long Island or Central Western New York, because I live in Eastern New York and know a lot of that area. But hello, I hope you're having a great time in New York. So I have a few things to talk about tonight, and if you have any machine quilting questions, just post them. This is a great time to post them and get your questions live. If not, post them in Debbie Brown's Machine Quilting Studio Facebook group. That's a great place to post your questions or your suggestions or ideas. Somebody posted how they mark their circles with a certain ruler, and it's great because a lot of times I mark my circles with a lid or a tea mug, something like that. Near Syracuse. Hello. So let's see. To go there, I would take the what is it? The Downstate Express and come up. Yeah. I've been to Syracuse many times. Go Big Orange, I think. So hello over there. And I was teaching there once in July in Syracuse, and I was like, is it going to snow? because we had to drive through Syracuse. My daughter went to the University of Buffalo, and I live over near New York City, so that's across the state. And every time we drove through Syracuse, it snowed. And when I asked, when I was teaching in Syracuse, I said, "Is it going to snow there?" In July. They're like, "It could." Um, Welcome to the snowiest city of that size in the United States. So tonight we're going to talk about putting your patterns together, because and it worked out really well that the quilt I finished to show you this week, as well as the class I'm going to talk about, both are kind of the same thing. You've made a quilt for your son's wedding. Congratulations. I made a quilt for my son's wedding, and I gave it to him 13 months late. Are you on time? And my daughter got married in March, and I didn't make her quilt because they had a 39-day engagement. And I got out of the hospital a few days before her wedding, so she'll get it eventually. Let's see. I would like help on how to quilt it. Storm at Sea version. Our hearts will go on. Oh, that would be beautiful. Yeah, if you want to post a picture in the Facebook group, we can see what we can do. We can put some answers in there, or I can bring it out and I can bring a picture up and talk about it here in one of our groups. In one of our Wednesday nights. Wednesday wedding is November. You might get it done. Good for you. Yeah, no 39-day engagements. Yeah. I believe in you. And I also believe you have a year. I finished my friend's wedding quilt. She got married December of 21, and she got her quilt in like May of 23. So 18 months. I'm like, if they're still married, it's on time. That's kind of the way I look at it. It kind of was a rough year. I was late on everything. So I just lost you. Where are you? I clicked something. Hello, I'm back. So let me show you a quilt. And then I'll start talking about different ways to quilt. Download here. And I will share the picture with you. Oh, I'm very happy to help. I know once you finish that quilt, you get it there and you're like, I don't know what to quilt on here. That's a really hard part. My problem now at this point in my career is I have to have like 6 of the same top because I have 6 different ways I want to quilt it. Except for some quilts where I quilt them all exactly the same. You know, with ribbon candy, because it's the world's most perfect machine quilting design. So let me share a picture with you. Window picture. Hello. So this is this week's quilt. It is not uploaded in Color Blocks 2021, Color Blocks Volume 1 yet. It's edited, but I have a few more things to do with it. This quilt was the last quilt in 2021 for Color Blocks, and it took forever for me to be brave enough to quilt it. You know, if I get sick and things get behind, then I move on to the next thing. So I still have some quilts from 2022 that aren't quilted, but I am current on 2023. If by current, I mean that I didn't do it for 5 months while I had COVID. So this floating star quilt, I wanted to really show the rays. I wanted it, you know, and they're offset because this is an offset quilt. And so I took my walking foot and stitched rays out in all the directions. If I were to do it again, I would not stitch rays in the center part. Number one, it was 1.5 million knots. And number two, I don't think it adds anything to the quilt. I also stitched those rays through these little sashings, and I wouldn't do that next time. I would just let it go because I don't think that adds anything to it either. But out here in the outer edge, it's magical. When I pieced the quilt, I used gray cornerstones, and I really like how that looks in the background, like little, you know, little star dots or whatever. So I'm happy with how it turned out. I've been playing with back problems lately, and I had a couple weeks where I couldn't really walk because it took out my left leg and nerves and things like that. So I was just sitting in my chair, and this quilt got me through all of those days waiting for my back to calm down. And I knew I wanted to do a lot of thread in here to change the color of the fabric so that you could see what was going on. And I said, I could just quilt pebbles in there, or I could just meander in there. I could just quilt swirls in there. You could pick any one design, quilt the whole thing between the rays, and life is beautiful. But I decided to put two patterns together. Sometimes that can be scary. So I did swirls and pebbles. And I chose those based on the Starry Night painting, the swirls on that night sky. That's kind of how I put it together. But you could have picked, meandering and flowers or swirls, or pick your favorite background design, stars, whatever works for you. But I picked just two designs. Let me see. And here you can see it in process. So here is the color before the quilting, and here's the color after the quilting. And yes, I did use nearly a cone of thread in there. So how did I transition from the swirls to the pebbles, back to the swirls, back to the pebbles? I'll show you that in the video, which again is done but not uploaded. It'll be in the class soon. And once you get your newsletter, it'll be a direct link over to Color Blocks 2021. Be sure to join it because I'm about to close the class. It's free right now. And as long as you join it when it's free forever, and you'll never have to pay for it. Once I close it, it'll be a paid class. And I wasn't closing it till I finished the last quilt. So kind of worked out for y'all, but definitely get in there while it's free. You can tell I work alone because my business manager would never let me say that, but I don't have one. So there we go. So how do I transition between the swirls and the pebbles and the swirls and the pebbles? Well, number one, it'll be in the video, but the short version is I make the swirl and then I do pebbles all the way around so that none of my swirls touch each other. It's just the way I prefer it. And then once I have one swirl insulated or buffered by a round of pebbles, then I place another swirl and fill in the in-betweens. So that's one design, two designs. And that's how I do that. This is not a show quilt. If it was a show quilt, I would have done a more spectacular binding. I would have blocked the quilt. But the Color Blocks quilts for me are lazy sewing because they're all scrap and none of the corners have to match and everything's beautiful. And the quilting is no stress quilting either, even though this took forever. And I didn't mind at all. Let me stop sharing. Let's see, come back and say hi to you. So, thank you for really liking my star quilt. I do too. It came out pretty much exactly how I wanted it to. Not that there weren't periods of complete crippling self-doubt while I was working it. Annette, I hope the storm was fine. I've heard down your way it wasn't as bad as they expected, but up toward the Panhandle it got pretty brutal. But I hope you're okay where you are. Hurricanes. Hope you kept power and were able to quilt, which is the best medicine for everything, probably including hurricanes. We get a few up here, but I definitely quilt through blizzards. So that is how I quilt. Oops. I accidentally blocked somebody. I am so sorry, whoever I blocked. Did I pin somebody? That's what it is. Okay. So if I blocked you, it wasn't intentional. I'm so sorry. I clicked somebody in the chat and something happened. I'm sorry. Let's see. What else did I do wrong? I want to show you the class that I was talking about because the free motion quilting I talked about just now was one pattern and a second pattern and how I join them together. I have a class on how to join more patterns together. So let me share this with you. I have no idea what I've done here. Me and technology are not having a day today. Let me share this, that, and here we are. So this, if you go to debbiebrownquilts.com, and click online classes, it'll send you over to this dashboard, which is me back before I cut my hair off and gave up on trying to straighten it. I let it go curly a lot. So these color blocks classes up at the top, this color blocks quilt along 2021. That's the one you're going to want to join. And when I close it, it'll be called Color Blocks Volume 1, and 2021 will be in there somewhere. But I have a class, Build Your Own Edge to Edge Free Motion Quilting Pattern. Now it says for home and long arm machine quilters. The joy of this one is I quilted all of it twice. So I filmed it entirely on a home machine, and then I filmed it entirely on a long arm. It doesn't often matter between the two, but when I can, I like to show you both. So here's the class. And 2 hours of long arm and video and home machine video, 10 different motifs, 5 background designs, and I'll give you some tricks on how to arrange them. So let's, when you scroll down, you'll get to see the curriculum. Why would you custom design an edge to edge pattern for your quilt? And I have different answers to those questions. How to get the most out of the class. Why would you want to design a pattern like that? And it's for all types of machines. So select a quilt. In the class, there's a pattern. I have a pattern in the class for an orphan block quilt. And I just grabbed some 12, I think they were 12-inch orphan blocks out of my orphan block bucket and made up a pattern. But you can put this on any quilt or just a plain piece of fabric, a panel, something like that. I talk about thread, needles, batting, and some optional materials. And the quilting order. So for long arm quilters, you would start at the top. For home machine quilters, you might start in the center. Stationary long arm quilters, either way. Then for the introduction, I go through a motif and a background. So I have flowers and vertical lines as backgrounds. Then the next run is filigree feathers and pebbles. For pansy, you have pansy in there, ribbon candy, and echo fill. A spiral, and this is free motion, feather, and meander. So some of them are motifs, some of them are background designs. Horizontal lines to go with the vertical lines, background swirls, and how to put it all together. There's some exceptions to the rule. Do whatever you want on the quilt. And then I have a couple bonus designs, working within the limits of your machine, and another bonus design. So that's what's in the class, but I'll tell you what's fun about this. Let me come back and see you. Hello. So what I do whenever I come up with the designs is I usually make 2 columns of 6. And I write 6 patterns and 6 background designs, because as you're choosing these designs to put them on your quilt, put them on there randomly. Does anyone freak out about random? If you're a quilter, you do. How many times do you move quilts around on your design board? They're like, oh, if that block is touching that block, but I don't want that, so I'm going to move this over here. But now this block is touching this block, so I have to move it over here. But now this block is touching, and it takes 20 years to design your quilt. Am I the only one? I personally don't have much problem with that because I'm a good enough quilter, like good enough. And if 2 touch, I'll live with it. But I know that that's a serious hang up for people. So I know putting random designs on a quilt can be challenging. Here's a fun story. There were 2 Jeff Browns, that's my husband's name, that graduated together. And my husband's a couple years older than I am. We went to the same high school. And I was that annoying girl in high school wearing the college sweatshirt because I'm dating a college boy. And they're like, who are you dating? And I'm like, oh, I'm dating Jeff Brown. And everyone went, oh, and I went the other one. Because I did not date the captain of the basketball team. I dated the head of the Dungeons and Dragons, which is like a geeky board game for math and science nerds. So anyway, excellent. Adore my husband. Fantastic. But it's a dice-based game, and they have dice of all different, like you can get a 4-sided dice, a 5-sided dice, a 6-sided dice, 7, 8, 9, 24, 32. So I use dice to randomize a lot of my projects because like, oh, how do I do this? I want to divide this into 8. How do I randomly come up with a number? Now you can use your mobile device for a random number generator, whatever. I use dice, and I will look at my husband, I was like, "Honey, I'm doing something that I need 12. I need 12 things. Do you have a dice? A die that is, has 12 sides on it?" And he'll say, "What color would you like?" To which makes me say, "I would marry you all over again because I get to choose what color of a 12-sided dice I want." So what I do to put all of these designs together on my quilt is, I'll put 6 motifs and 6 background designs, and I pick 6 because people who are not fortunate enough to be married to the head of the Dungeons& and Dragons group, and don't have all these multi-sided dice, probably have a six-sided die somewhere in the house. Roll a die, and that's the thing you put on next. And in the class, I show you how to transition from one to another, from one to another, and it really makes some fun designs. Um, did that kinda make sense? And I wanna show another quilt. So I'm pulling it up here. And let me share that with you. Let me make sure anybody's here. I guess you're here. So here we go. So I am back on my class page. And this is the cover for As the Bobbin Turns, which is my subscription, my video subscribers for the people who are supporting me that way. The quilt I've chosen on that I've used on here was done with that so you can see that it can be done over a pieced quilt. So I have feathers, I have swirly feathers, I have a spiral, I have a pansy down here, I have a rose up here, or whatever type of flower that is. I filled this in with pebbles and some echoing, but I do more background designs now. This is an older quilt. It just happened to be one that photographed beautifully. And I still have that quilt. That's saved for my next grandbaby. So let me come back to you. Hello. It makes total sense. I have 2 cousins that love Dungeons& and Dragons, and I know the dice you're talking about. Yeah. So that's fun, using the dice like that. But, in the class, I do it on a white quilt. Unfortunately, when I was photographing it, the weather was really bad, and I live and die by the lighting. Like, I'm gonna bind a quilt today for a video that I'm hoping will get some sun, and right now, this time of year, I have to take a picture by 2, because after 2, the sun is over the mountain. I live on a mountain, on the side of a mountain, so once the sun goes down over here, I don't have sun anymore, and it's really dark. So the pictures aren't always great, so if I get a good picture, it's a good thing. Hoping for a good one tomorrow. Uh but that is how to put the edge to edge together. And these classes come up by I'm teaching this, or I'm interested in it. I'm quilting this, and once I get enough material, it comes out as a class. As I am working through class ideas, like every quilt I get gives me another idea. Every quilt I quilt gives me another idea. And so I might not sit down and do all 10 lessons at once, but I might have 3 classes going and have lesson 1 of this, lesson 2 of that, lesson 3 of that. I put them all in that subscription so people can see the quilts. That is just a weekly look over my shoulder, a couple times a month, looking over my shoulder to see what I'm doing. And then once I get all the class material together, I'll pull it out and publish it as a class, for those who aren't subscribers, and we'll get to see it as a whole class. So that's kind of where that class came from. Um, I am so excited to show you how I'm quilting the YouTube video that'll be out on Friday. Once a month, I try to do a cutie pattern and how to quilt it. So Friday's quilt, um, it's made with apples, and I finished machine quilting it, and I'm in love with how I did it. So I'm in the middle of editing that video right now. That'll be up on YouTube on Friday morning, New York time, probably like 11:30 or something like that. And I also am going to have a quilt out on Friday because first of the month, new color block. I could hold the color block off until next week, and say, oh, early September is good enough. However, in the United States, It is Labor Day on Monday, and a lot of people have a 3-day weekend and go traveling. But also a lot of people stay home and quilt. So I'm going to try to get that out Friday. I'm using pink color blocks. And as people were guessing what the animal was, not one person guessed right. It was a pig. And the quilt will be called Wee Wee Wee. So that'll hopefully be out Friday. Should all Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, because I have the quilt designed, haven't pieced it yet, but they don't take too long. As you know, once you have the color blocks made, the rest is easy. So look for newsletters to tell you what's going on. If you haven't subscribed yet to my newsletter, go to debbiebrownquilts.com, scroll down, and subscribe. I only email you once a week, occasionally twice a week, sometimes only 3 times a month. So average once a week. I won't bother you. And what I will only do is send you things to tell you when the next free content is up and what is coming out that's new. So stay in touch with me that way. That's what I'm doing. I can't wait to see what you're doing. If as you're doing things, you can tag me with at Debbie Brown Quilts on Facebook, on Instagram, and I'm also easy to find. You can get in touch with me through Debbie Brown's Machine Quilting Studio, and my email's right on my website. It'll just pop it directly to my personal email. So stay in touch. Let me know what you're doing. I'd love to see it. Post your questions in the machine quilting group or bring them here on a Wednesday evening. Now, next Wednesday, I think, let me look at a calendar. Next Wednesday is something different. Let me look at my calendar here. So today is the 30th. Can you believe it's September? Like just about. It's the 6th. Oh, okay. Next week will be another class. I have something special I'll talk about on the 13th. Because I will be away for part of September. I have some family business to take care of, and I have some special pre-filmed videos that will be going out that come with a free pattern, like different ways to quilt a free pattern. So on the week before I leave, I will tell you how to get the free pattern. And that should be Wednesday the 13th. You'll get information on how to download the free pattern from my website. And then I'm not sure if it'll be 1 week or 2 or more, but I have a couple versions of it filmed. It's made with charm packs. And I will put some charm packs on my website on sale and get that going. Is 1 week enough, or do you want me to put it out next week? You can let me know. But that's what's coming up. Like if I know I'm gone, I didn't know I was going to be gone when I had COVID for 4 or 5 months. But if I know I'm going to be gone, I'll try to fill in with extra content like this, and that will be on YouTube, and it'll be out on the Wednesday nights for the weeks that I'm away. So, thanks for playing along. Wait for your newsletter. I hope to see you on Friday. Next week, you want it sooner? I knew that was going to happen. I'll show you how to get the free pattern in next Wednesday night. We'll talk about that. And it's called ABC 123, and it's kind of like a menu. Pick one design from column 1, one design from column 2, one design from column 3, and mix it together on this quilt. And then I will have several versions of that quilt that I've made and quilted that you'll learn several A's, several B's, several C's, and mix and match your favorites together. It's a real fun quilt, real easy. I've been having fun. For those who don't know, with my back being out, and it's a flare up from an autoimmune disease, and it attacks my spine. I'm actually 1.5 inches shorter now. Yay! But I'm also on a lot of steroids, trying to calm everything down, which is what this is from. But it gives me a lot of chattering energy and a lot of quilting energy. That's how a lot has gotten done. So I apologize for the fast talking that I'll talk your ear off. Better living through medicine, right? I hate them, but I love that they help. So I will I'll put the pattern out for next week, and I'll put the charm squares out for next week. And you can start on that, but the video will not come out for 3 more weeks, 2 more weeks. Okay. So happy quilting. Have a safe weekend. If you're if you're in the States and you're traveling, travel safely. People on the highways are dumb. But be safe, enjoy some family, enjoy some time off at the end of our summer, and happy quilting, everyone. I'll be back again on Tuesday, and we'll talk about new content coming out next week, which will be the Wee quilt, which is pigs. And we'll see what else. Might have a few more surprises for you. Happy quilting, everyone.